Hello and welcome on Thomas Geiger Car, today with the brand new BMW X2. Since SUVs are selling like hotcake in every segment, the Bavarian car company is extending its already impressive lineup of X models. So the X games will not only continue with the X7 at the luxury segment, no, they're also filling some niches and gaps in the lower end of the market. So the already well-known and well-received X1 now is getting a fancy brother, the X2. More lifestyle-orientated, more design-orientated and more fun to drive. At least that's what BMW is claiming. If it's true what they say, that's what we're gonna find out on our first test drive here on Thomas Geiger Car. So please join me on my ride and I'll tell you more about it. Since the X2 belongs to the same family as X1 and the Tourer models of the 2 Series, you can imagine all the engines of the other vehicles, even the plug-in hybrid. But for the moment, BMW is planning with a limited selection. They're going to start with 2 diesels for Europe and 2 petrol engines for the rest of the world. The X2 20i will deliver about 190 horsepower out of a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. And the X2 18i will deliver about 150 horsepower out of the 3-cylinder with 1.5 liter of displacement. But I'm pretty sure, since the car is looking that aggressive and dynamic, there will be more powerful derivatives in the near future. The X2 might use the same platform as the Tourer models and as the X1, but BMW has tuned the car in a different way. So it's not only looking more aggressive and more agile, it's also driving a bit more aggressive and more agile. Steering response is more direct and suspension is a little bit stiffer and harder than you know it, especially from the X1. So the cozy, comfortable family cruiser, that's definitely the X1. But if Daddy's gonna have some fun, then he should pick the X2. BMW has not only changed the rear of the car, they've also somehow adjusted the front to give it a more sporty, more aggressive look. Especially the kidney grille is bolder than at the X1. The headlights are a bit smaller and slimmer and looking more aggressive. And this plastic part looks more rugged than at the X1. Overall, it's the fancy car and the fancy lifestyle appearance that BMW wants to show with the X2. If you compare X2 with its bigger brothers X4 and X6, it might not look as dynamic because on that small size, the coupe-shaped tailgate was just not possible. Otherwise, you couldn't have any chance to sit on the back seat. But compared to the X1, even the back of the X2 is really extremely dynamic and aggressive because they took a different shape for the tailgate, they took a different shape for the lights, and there is one small mark that indicates it's a real sports car, the BMW logo on the last pillar of the body, because that's a sign first used at a real iconic car, the legendary BMW M1. The interior of the X2 is not a surprise. It's looking pretty familiar like you know it from X1 or X3. You got a cockpit with a black panel display, still analog dials, no animated dials like in the models of the higher grades. You got a touchscreen over here and you got your iDrive controller on the center console. So if you're familiar with the look and feel of any BMW, you will pretty soon be familiar with the X2 as well. The rear seat is probably not the most comfortable place in the new BMW X2. But considering the size of the vehicle, it is not that bad. And even with my almost 1 meter and 90 centimeters, I can somehow arrange myself in the back of the vehicle. And if you compare it with an X1 or with the 1 Series, it's not that bad at all. The only thing that is missing is a bit of height when you enter the vehicle, because you really have to take your head down, otherwise you'll get some bruises. And for my taste, windows could be a bit bigger so that the car feels more roomy than it actually is. But beyond that, for short distance drive, it is more than okay to even sit on the back. True, the X2 might not be as roomy and as versatile as its reasonable brother X1, but it is still a very practical car and suits perfect for a young family on the way to a short vacation or a shopping trip, because the trunk still boasts an impressive 470 liters. And even if the opening is a bit smaller and you got to lift your luggage a bit higher, it is still better than any regular compact hatchback. Thank you for joining me on my first test drive with the new BMW X2. For me, one of the most interesting compact SUVs of the season, because X1 somehow is too boring and too conventional, not a car that makes your heart beat faster. This is something completely different with the X2, because it's not only looking better than the X1, it's also driving better. The downside of it, you have to pay a little more, but it is always expensive to have a good taste. Thank you, tschüsschen, and bye-bye.